Ever since Invincible Season 3 dropped, Mark's purple-skinned hybrid Viltrumite brother has been the talk of the town. As the son of Omni-Man and a member of a powerful alien race, this little dude has the potential to surpass nearly every other hero in the series. Oliver Grayson, who's better known as Kid Omni-Man in the comics, is actually Mark Grayson's half-brother. Born on the planet Thraxa, Oliver inherited the incredible powers of his father and brother, along with some other unique traits from his Thraxan heritage. But after Thraxa was left in ruins by a Viltrumite attack in Invincible issue 29, Oliver was brought to Earth and raised by Mark's mother, Debbie, with the hopes that he would grow into a hero in his own right. Growing up, Oliver idolized both Mark and their father, but his path to heroism soon took a very different turn. As he stepped into the role of Kid Omni-Man, it became clear that Oliver shared more with his father than just his name. Right now, he's shaping up to be one of the show's biggest rising stars, and I think it's time we discuss Oliver Grayson's entire journey in the Invincible saga. Before we get too deep into things, we do have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to the channel. It's a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you, and without wasting another moment, let's get right into it. What is Oliver like in the comics? I think it's safe to say that Oliver's most eye-catching trait is his purple skin. As a toddler, he had a very similar hairstyle to his elder brother, but as a preteen, he has two hair bangs. As a toddler, Oliver wore a white and gray shirt with gray pants, much like Omni-Man's traditional Viltrumite uniform before his arrival on Earth. But later, as a preteen, he wore a white shirt with red sleeves and a red collar, as well as dark gray pants. Initially, once Oliver learned to have a better grip on his powers, he dressed in an orange and white shirt and pants, along with a scarf mask and goggles. He would actually wear this outfit to his first fight with Tether Tyrant and Megmaniac. But when Art fitted him for his first superhero costume, it consisted of a black eye mask, yellow gloves and boots, and a red and black costume with an O logo in yellow. And it looked a lot like his father's attire. Now, as a young child, Oliver represented the true nature of an innocent youngster who was curious, lively, and loving. Later, as a preteen, Oliver retained his lively spirit but turned into a stubborn and impulsive boy who couldn't fully harness his power. His ideologies leaned more towards a logical perspective rather than an ethical one. Oliver never really acknowledged the horror of the way he murdered the Mauler twins, as he viewed it as a way to better the world by getting rid of evil. He also tends to regard non-superpowered individuals as inferior to beings like himself and any other superheroes. How was Oliver born? So Oliver Grayson was born on Thraxa to Nolan Grayson and Andressa. He was born with purple skin as his mother's species wasn't as compatible with Viltrumites as humans are. After Nolan's fight with Invincible and leaving Earth, Omni-Man made his way to Thraxa, which was populated by a species of bug people. After learning that Thraxans only have a lifespan of 9 months and that the oldest rule the planet, Nolan revealed his powers and quickly became the planet's new ruler. Over a short period, Nolan ruled over generations of Thraxans and eventually took a Thraxan woman, Andressa, as his new partner, and the two had Oliver shortly after. Knowing the Viltrumites would come for him, Omni-Man eventually called Mark to Thraxa, asking him to help defeat the incoming soldiers. After a very awkward reunion and coming to terms with having an alien half-brother, Mark agreed to help because Oliver was innocent, and then the Viltrumites arrived. Oliver was actually kept hidden in a room with his mother until the Viltrumites arrived to arrest Nolan. Later, Mark grabbed Oliver and Andressa to take them to a cave on Thraxa, while the father and son duo took on the Viltrumites in a bloody battle across the planet, which resulted in the death of many Thraxans and the destruction of most of the planet. Unfortunately, Oliver and Andressa were found by Lucan in their safe place. While the Viltrumite was distracted, Mark handed Oliver to Andressa before attacking Lucan. He then grabbed Oliver and attempted to get away from Lucan, but the Viltrumites soon caught up to the trio. Luckily, Nolan came to their rescue, allowing his sons a chance to escape. Mark landed with Oliver and Andressa just as Nolan arrived to take them back to the caves. Once they returned, Mark touched down inside, but as it goes, the Viltrumites proved too much for Omni-Man and Invincible. After a brutal battle with the Viltrumites, Mark went to Andressa with devastating news that Nolan had been captured. Mark himself was in a half-dead condition and given orders to take over Earth for the Viltrumite Empire. Mark would stay on Thraxa for a while to recover and help the people rebuild. In that time, Andressa grew older, while Oliver's development slowed and began to become more similar to that of humans. A month later, knowing that Oliver would outgrow everyone he ever knew generations over, Andressa asked Mark to bring him to Earth, and so Oliver left Thraxa in order to live with Debbie on Earth. But just as they were boarding the spaceship, Andressa revealed that she didn't have much time to live and had aged too much to take care of her son. Before they parted ways, young Oliver managed to say just one word to Mark, calling him brother, and eventually, Invincible returned to Earth with his new baby brother. How did Oliver adjust to Earth? After coming to Earth, Mark told his mother about his new brother and asked her to take care of him. Initially, Debbie was understandably reluctant, but soon she started to take care of Oliver and play with him. Even though he had purple skin that stood out, Debbie attempted to raise Oliver with a normal childhood like Mark had. However, Oliver was far from ordinary and continued growing at an accelerated rate, thus developing several years within a few months. Now a young man, Oliver became obsessed with Mark's career as Invincible and began idolizing his older brother. Sometime later, Oliver and Debbie were captured and held hostage by Angstrom Levy, who was hoping to get revenge against Mark. When Angstrom held Oliver, he complimented his purple skin before throwing him to Debbie, but once the villain hurt Mark's mom by tearing off her hand, Oliver started crying. After Mark returned from another dimension, Debbie and Oliver were taken to a hospital at the Pentagon and, well, Angstrom was killed. While in this facility, Oliver would play with trucks until a tutor named April Howsam arrived. While Mark was in space, Oliver was being tutored by April, with April amazed at his skill development. April stated that he was only there less than a month and was already at 4th grade math and 7th grade reading. In Invincible issue 42, Oliver developed his own powers and took flight for the first time while playing catch with Mark. When Debbie found out about his powers, she asked the duo to come inside and insisted Oliver not use his powers without supervision. But once his powers developed, it wasn't long until Oliver was begging Mark to take him along on his superhero adventures. During a bank robbery involving Tether Tyrant and Meg Maniac, Oliver snuck out and took this opportunity to become a hero by helping Mark defeat the villains. After having his first fight under his belt, Mark finally agreed to train him, and in Invincible issue 51, Mark took Oliver to see Art Rosenbaum, the tailor, to get his very own costume. After getting said costume, Oliver revealed that he had chosen Kid Omni-Man as his superhero name, much to the surprise of both Art and Mark. Mark sat Oliver down and explained that their father did terrible things on Earth and that it would be a long time before people started to not fear the name Omni-Man. But Oliver was too young to see reason and he was confused. He believed Nolan was a hero on his planet, and so Oliver wanted to actively work to redeem him by taking on his name. Mark questioned if Oliver was right, but before he could convince him to change his name, the two were called away when Kursk and Furnace attacked the Stronghold Penitentiary in an attempt to free Multipol. This would be a pivotal moment for Oliver and Mark, showing their differences and similarities. Like Mark, Oliver grew up seeing Nolan as a hero and someone who was admired. However, Oliver never saw the dark side of Omni-Man that Mark did, which nearly cost him his life. The whole thing creates a stark contrast between the two brothers throughout the comics. This was also one of the first times Mark questioned his approach to being a hero and people's ability to change, leading to his more pragmatic approach to crime in later issues. Kid Omni-Man once went rogue and shocked everyone. So, in Invincible issue 52, the Maulers attacked a nuclear base and it was Invincible who went to stop them. Seeing the attack on TV, Oliver also rushed to Mark's aid and jumped right into the fight. Even though Mark kept telling him that he wasn't ready, Oliver refused to leave, and before he could listen to his brother, the Mauler twins released a nuclear rocket. After asking his brother to head home, Invincible sped off to stop the missile, but Oliver had other ideas and took on the Maulers alone. He literally broke the jaw of one of the twins, which infuriated them, causing them to throw him away into the rubble. But Oliver got up and, without a second thought, shot himself straight through one of the Mauler twins, ripping him in half. The other Mauler twin looked on in horror at the sight of the bloodbath and began to beg Oliver to let him live. But even after he surrendered, Oliver punched him so hard that his head exploded. Now, Oliver was shocked at his own strength. He really had no idea just how powerful he was. But later, Cecil came in to comfort Oliver, and that's when he starts to justify his actions. When Invincible eventually came back to Earth, he discovered what Oliver had done and was furious. He told Oliver that they don't kill people because human life was precious. However, Oliver saw things very differently and felt that most humans were insignificant and didn't even care for their own lives. Oliver even goes on to say that the only way to stop villains from hurting again is to kill them. The violent death of the Mauler twins by Oliver was the moment that solidified him as no longer just an innocent kid, but someone with incredible power who's more like Omni-Man in almost every way Mark is not. Again, this This highlights how Oliver's relationship with Earth is more similar to Nolan's experiences than to Mark's. Mark later tried to talk to Oliver again in Invincible issue 53, but he showed zero remorse for what he had done. Now, Oliver was having troubles relating to the people of Earth or even liking them. It was probably because on his home planet, due to Thraxans having a short lifespan, the greater good and society as a whole were always put above any one individual, so that's probably why he felt that humans were a selfish, disgusting species. Moreover, Thraxans remember every moment of their lives, so Oliver could even remember conversations during his birth. This revelation brought Oliver's views and similarities to Omni-Man into perspective, with Oliver having been influenced by him much earlier than previously thought. Being able to remember everything from his time on Thraxa, Oliver experienced his father being a hero from the moment he was born, and from his perspective, Nolan bravely fought the Viltrumite invaders that destroyed his planet. When Debbie and Mark tried talking to Oliver the next day, they would argue again. Oliver sees himself as being more logical in his views on killing, whereas Mark lets his emotions and sense of moral justice cloud his judgment. This parallels Omni-Man's views on humanity during his fight with Mark in Invincible issue 12, where he called humans meaningless animals who couldn't even be seen as equals. While Oliver doesn't understand what his mom or brother really meant, he still apologized for his erratic behavior and promised to be more careful going forward. What role did Kid Omni-Man play in the Invincible War? Mark continued to train Oliver, and in Invincible issue 56, Oliver finally went on his first solo adventure. While patrolling the city, he encountered Rampage and caused massive destruction during their fight until Mark arrived and sent him home. Things would smooth over between the brothers until Angstrom Levy returned. In Invincible issue 60, Levy attacked Earth with an army of Marks from across the multiverse in what's known as the Invincible War, making it one of the biggest events in the Invincible saga. During the attack, Oliver held his own against one of the alternate Marks and helped his brother and Bulletproof in their final assault on Levy. So during the war, Oliver would also battle one of the alternate Invincibles and sustained moderate injuries from the whole ordeal. After they were all sent to another dimension, Bulletproof, Mark, and Oliver charged at Angstrom Levy. After Invincible captured Levy, Oliver urged his brother to kill him, and Mark actually comes around to Oliver's logic. But then, Angstrom escaped through a portal before Mark could finish the job and lost his forearm in the process. Oliver would also help in cleaning up the debris from the destruction caused by the alternate Invincibles. The Invincible War not only proved Oliver was a hero, but was a definitive turning point for Mark as well, and the first time he intentionally gave in to his darker impulses and showed readers that he's more like his father and Oliver than he himself would like to admit. Later, after Levy's attack, a Viltrumite named Conquest arrived to check Mark's progress in taking over Earth, and so Oliver was forced to step up again. When Mark was battling Conquest, Oliver saw it on the news as Conquest beat his brother all across the city, and so he rushed to help Mark. But their fight was too fast for Oliver to even track. The little hero intervened only after they stopped moving. Mark then knocked Oliver away from Conquest in an attempt to keep him away from the battle. When Oliver came back again to help his brother battle Conquest, he had his arm broken and nearly beaten to death in the process. I mean, Conquest was pretty built up, dude. It really didn't take him much effort to break the boy's face, and he would have almost ripped Oliver in half if his brother hadn't come to his rescue. Mark was distraught to see his brother suffering that way, so he rushed Oliver to the Pentagon, where he could safely heal from his injuries due to the endurance of his Viltrumite genes. Invincible then goes on to battle Conquest and finally defeats him. Following this, we hear Mark ironically agreeing with Oliver that the only way to stop villains from hurting Earth was to kill them for good. After the whole traumatizing incident, the two brothers became closer than ever, and Mark finally started seeing Oliver as an equal, realizing he wasn't always right. Oliver would continue operating as Kid Omni-Man for a while, but soon took on a new costume and changed his name to Young Omni-Man before being called to fight with Mark and Nolan in the Viltrumite War. Oliver later appears before Mark and Eve with a new costume after having grown significantly older. Now, after separating from Cecil and going out on his own as a solo hero, Mark and Eve start their own private security firm called the Invincible Inc. They would often ask Oliver to help them out on jobs and missions related to their new firm. Eventually, Oliver would see his father again after Nolan arrives to recruit some of Earth's heroes to fight in the Viltrumite War. Even though Oliver begged them to take him along to fight in the war, Mark insisted that he should stay behind to protect Earth from any incoming threats. But eventually, after he has a brief chat with Nolan, Omni-Man allows Oliver to help out in the Viltrumite War. Apparently, Oliver's loyalties to Mark were never again challenged in the Viltrumite War, though he ultimately sided with his family. Even when he nearly faced his death, Oliver Grayson showed that his father may have inspired his growth from Kid Omni-Man to Young Omni-Man, but all of that was only possible because of his older brother. Oliver was nearly killed in the Viltrumite War. So, when the coalition of planet allies were going to take Talescria, they were attacked by Conquest, who destroyed their ship along with Lucan and another Viltrumite. Oliver then charges straight at Conquest, but the villain effortlessly swats him away. Before he can recover, Lucan attacks Oliver again until Nolan finally steps in to help. Even though young Omni-Man manages to land a hit on Lucan, his inexperience in space forces him to retreat to a nearby habitable planet, and just as Conquest goes after him, Mark intercepts the attack. Oliver then witnesses a huge crash in the distance and immediately rushes over, only to find Conquest dead while his brother is barely clinging on for dear life after the brutal battle. Following this, Oliver and Nolan spent the next few months on the planet waiting for Mark to recover from his injuries. Once he was healed, they set off for Talescria to join the war effort. Mark and Oliver charged headfirst into battle by taking on a Viltrumite warship. Their attack forced the Viltrumites to retreat, and after tossing the damaged ship into space, they turned their attention to helping the wounded. With the battle far from over, Thaddeus led a strike team including Battle Beast, Space Racer, Tech Jacket, Alan the Alien, Nolan, and Oliver straight to the Viltrumites' homeworld. But before they could gain any ground, a powerful Viltrumite warrior named Thula ambushed them. Luckily, because of Battle Beast's lust for battle and his obsession with fighting Viltrumites, he happily smacks Thula with his mace before the group proceeds to battle. Oliver managed to land a low blow on one of the Viltrumites before charging at Thrag after he knocked Mark back, but Thrag was unfazed. He effortlessly caught Oliver's punch, then went on to brutally rip off his arm and shatter his jaw, leaving him on the brink of death. After Viltrum was destroyed, Mark rushed to help his wounded brother, but Thrag and the other Viltrumites had already left Oliver to die. Fortunately, the Coalition rescued him and then transported him to a hospital in Talescria. In order to save his life, they would hook him up with a cybernetic jaw and arm before placing him in a stasis tank to speed up his healing process. Oliver almost infected his brother with the Scourge Virus once. After recovering from his injuries and adjusting to his new cybernetic parts, Oliver spends time healing while living with Alan and Telia. Once he was back on his feet, Oliver attempted to fight crime, but the police quickly shut him down. Before long, Nolan arrives and the two head off to visit Debbie. While staying with Nolan and Debbie, Oliver grew frustrated by their lack of privacy, just as Nolan had been when he was staying with Alan and Telia. I mean, come on, who likes to hear their parents doing it? During his stay, Oliver also picked up on some tension between Alan and Nolan. When Alan asked him to leave them alone, Oliver realized that they were arguing and decided to step in by siding with his father and attacking Alan. This is when the security intervened, forcing Alan to explain his plan, and this is how we find out that Alan intends to release an enhanced version of the Scourge Virus into Earth's atmosphere in order to wipe out the Viltrumites while also potentially sacrificing humanity in the process. After hearing Alan's reasoning, Oliver makes a shocking decision and goes on to agree with him. Nolan then tried to reason with Oliver, explaining that the Viltrumites could change just as Earth changed him, but Oliver wasn't convinced. He argued that he had studied human history and believed that humans were inherently selfish. While Nolan considered stopping Oliver by force, he hesitated as he was still shaken from his fight with Mark. But before Omni-Man could come to a decision, Alan attacked him, after which he and Oliver head to Earth. When they arrive, Mark is there to meet them, and Alan wastes no time in revealing his plan to eviscerate Earth's population along with the Viltrumites. But Mark was absolutely horrified to hear all of this. He argued that wiping out the Viltrumites in such an insufferable way wasn't much different from what actually happened to Alan's own race. As tensions rose and they kept fighting, Mark attacked Alan, and that's when Oliver stepped in to stop him. But before their fight could escalate any further, Thrag appeared, revealing how he already knew about Alan's plan and offered a truce. His reasoning was cold but calculated, because once the virus was released and Alan was dead, nothing will have truly changed. Seeing no other option, Alan reluctantly accepted the truce, but Oliver was furious to see him deter from the original plan. Now this is when the Guardians of the Globe arrive and try to arrest Mark. As another battle ensues, Oliver managed to grab the virus dispenser from Alan's gadget belt and flew down to Earth, only to be stopped by Mark. Luckily, Mark grabs the dispenser from his brother, prompting Oliver to immediately move to stop him. The two brothers start to struggle over it, and their argument grows more heated until in the chaos, Oliver accidentally releases the fumes straight into Mark's face. Once he realizes what he's done, Oliver begins to panic and rushes over to catch Mark, but Alan holds him back, warning that his own Viltrumite DNA could put him at risk too. Instead, Mark is taken aboard the Viltrumite warship for testing, leaving Oliver anxiously waiting in the lobby, worried for his brother's fate. Needing a distraction, Oliver and Alan go to visit Tech Jacket, only to get caught up in a battle against an alien threat. Just when things start to take a turn for the worse, they're saved by Eve. Following this, Alan, Oliver, and Eve rush to Earth after assuming that Dinosaurus was attacking Mark, but when they arrive, Dinosaurus grabs Oliver and tries to take on Alan and Bulletproof as well. well. In the chaos, Mark turns on Alan, landing a powerful hit, only for everyone to realize the blow has severely damaged Mark's arm. With no time to waste, they head to Tech Jacket for help, but end up getting invited aboard an alien mothership instead. Eventually, they return to the Grayson household, where Mark was furious with Alan and Oliver for not helping stop the Thraxan invasion in London, but after some tense words, Mark cools down and apologizes. Alan then informed him that he and Oliver were heading to Talescria. Before they leave, Oliver pulls Mark aside. Overcome with guilt, he breaks down and apologizes for infecting him, but given how much he loves his brother, Mark forgives him, and with that, Oliver departs for Talescria with Alan. Oliver had an alien girlfriend. Sometime after leaving Earth, Oliver would meet a girl named Haluma, who was an alien with a lobster-like appearance. Now, after 6 months, Oliver would significantly age once again and don a new appearance, similar to his father's old Coalition outfit. He would then arrive back on Earth to greet Mark and Eve, who now had their daughter, Tara. Wanting to do something nice, he offers to cook dinner for them, and Mark happily accepts. Later, Oliver arrives at their home with Haluma, eager to introduce her. As they chat, Mark and Oliver joke about Haluma's appearance, with Oliver sharing his perspective on how he sees humans. Once dinner was ready, the four sit down to eat before Oliver and Haluma head out. But that night, they hear troubling news about Tara's condition and grow seemingly concerned. When they checked in, Mark was furious, demanding to know what Haluma had fed his daughter. The argument only escalates, with Haluma standing her ground and Oliver stepping in to separate them. Eventually, the tension only eases when Eve arrives, reassuring Mark that Tara was fine. With things settled, Oliver and Haluma quietly leave the hospital. Following this, sometime later, Mark is asked to finish off a weakened Thrag after his brutal fight with Battle Beast, and so Oliver joins him. However, when the battle ends, neither Thrag nor Battle Beast's body can be found. A local later informs them that Battle Beast's remains were burned in a public celebration, strongly implying that Thrag was the one who walked away victorious. Later, Mark and Oliver returned to their spaceship, where they discovered Space Racer and Thraxa floating in a debris field. They quickly brought them aboard and placed them in medical stasis pods to recover, but before long, Thraxa woke up in a violent rage after being devastated by Battle Beast's death and broke out of her pod, lashing out uncontrollably. Mark and Oliver struggled to restrain her until Space Racer stepped in and finally managed to calm her down. Afterwards, the brothers met up with Alan to discuss the unsettling truth about how the threat of Thrag is still out there. Tensions rise even further when Oliver learns that Alan's carelessness nearly cost Tara her life. Furious, he struggles to contain his anger. Later that night, Alan tries to lighten the mood by inviting everyone to a movie. Oliver goes with Haluma and reassures Eve that Tara will enjoy it, but once the film starts, Tara begins crying, leaving Oliver apologetic for the choice. The next day, Oliver and Mark patrol Talescria together. During their rounds, they discover an illegal Canslock farm and take down a massive creature known as a Rhinax. Soon after, Alan tasks them with a new mission to hunt down Thrag. While Oliver is more than eager, Mark reminds him of how badly Thrag injured him last time. Despite the warning, they press on, but by the time they arrived, Thrag was already long gone. Even the Coalition spy had no idea where he disappeared to. Determined, Mark and Oliver split up to search for him. Mark then ventured into a mysterious cave, but before Oliver could stop him, their radio transmission cut out. With no way to reach his brother, Oliver was left in the dark, unaware of what had really happened to Mark. How did young Omni-Man meet his end? So after Mark woke up from his 5-year coma, Oliver had gone through a lot of his own struggles, but still he was back on duty. When he saw Mark, he could tell that something was wrong. Mark then broke down, and without hesitation, Oliver stepped in to comfort him, offering his brother a much-needed shoulder to lean on. Later, after the party, Oliver headed home to find Haluma caring for their twin children. He gave her a quick kiss and headed to his room, where he reported back to Thrag, thus revealing his secret role as a double agent. In the days that followed, Oliver visited Alan at the hospital to check on his recovery. Afterwards, he said a heartfelt goodbye to Mark, who was returning back to Earth for a visit. As Alan continued to heal, Oliver kept him updated on Thrag's movements. Eventually, Oliver decided it was time for him to meet Thrag face to face. He then arranged to speak with him in person, hoping to figure out the next steps in his otherwise complicated and dangerous life. Eventually, Thrag reached out to Oliver, demanding that he prove his loyalty to the Viltrumite cause. He revealed that he, along with 2 of his children, planned to kill Mark and his family, and ordered Oliver to do nothing to stop it. In fact, Thrag ordered Oliver to not even warn them. At this point, Oliver was desperate and even pleaded with Thrag to reconsider, suggesting that he could try to sway Mark and his family to their side instead. But Thrag was resolute in his decision and refused to entertain any other options. Just as the conversation ended, Thrag cuts the contact, leaving Oliver in stunned silence. Moments later, Haluma enters, concerned and asking why Oliver had been shouting, and the two began to unravel at the impending doom. With no other option left, Oliver Oliver arrives on Colthac to find Thrag threatening Mark's daughter, Tara. Without hesitation, Oliver stepped in, surprising Thrag and urging Tara to run and find her parents, but Thrag quickly turned the tables and gained the upper hand on him. When little Tara tried to help Oliver stop Thrag, she ended up breaking her leg in the process. Seeing her in pain, a furious Oliver fights back, accusing Thrag of harboring a deep hatred for the Grayson family. He then claims that Thrag resented them because they were the descendants of Argyll and were destined to lead in ways Thrag never could. While this successfully distracts Thrag from Tara, it also infuriates him enough to impale Oliver and brutally kill him in front of Tara. Devastated by his brother's death, Mark then takes vengeance by killing Thrag's son, Onan. Meanwhile, Eve quickly heals Tara's leg and joins Mark in driving Thrag and his daughter away, ensuring that they're no longer a threat. But still, they couldn't revive Oliver, who died fighting the Viltrumite brute to save his niece. How powerful was Kid, or young Omni-Man? Being a child of a Thraxan and a Viltrumite, Oliver had many unique powers that separated him from Invincible. While having all the powers of a Viltrumite, due to Thraxans being less compatible with their species, Oliver's power levels were significantly lower than Mark's or Nolan's. However, Oliver compensated for his weaker powers with his ability to develop and learn incredibly fast, which also allowed his powers to progress much faster than Mark's. This key difference between Invincible and Kid Omni-Man makes Oliver a unique and vital member of the Invincible family, whose potential could even exceed Mark's. As a Thraxan Viltrumite hybrid, Oliver's heritage has given him access to the various abilities of both races. Despite the comparatively lower genetic compatibility, Oliver's development was predominantly influenced by his Viltrumite genes, hence his appearance was more humanoid than insectoid, and over time, his skin became more human-like as he aged. Having inherited his father's dominant genes, after Oliver mated with an alien being with a different physiology than his own, they would likely primarily exhibit his genetic traits. Moreover, because of his Thraxan heritage, Oliver was able to gather and assimilate any kind of knowledge and understand it fully and almost instantly. He automatically understood the mechanics behind any issue or concept they faced and knew what had to be done in order to solve any problem. He also had perfect recall and the ability to cross-correlate information instantly. Oliver was also capable of learning, analyzing, memorizing, understanding, and mastering limitless amounts of information, knowledge, and skills while immediately utilizing them with very little effort. With this ability, he could easily master languages in an hour or even master a lifetime's worth of knowledge in academics within a few days. As a consequence of his enhanced memory, he remembered every moment of his life from birth to death. Due to his Viltrumite heritage, Oliver was granted strength far beyond human levels, and his upper limits were unknown as a Viltrumite. Even as a child, he was easily able to kill the Mauler twins with his bare hands. Like his brother, Oliver was also granted near limitless endurance and stamina. Apart from that, while Oliver's exact speed level is unknown, he's definitely faster than sound. His senses are also enhanced, which allows him to observe more as well as perceive reality at higher speeds. Due to his unique molecular structure, Oliver has a sort of indestructible and impenetrable anatomy, making him virtually impervious to all forms of physical harm, injury, or pain. And because of the genes he's inherited from both parents, Oliver could recover much faster from even the most severe injuries. I mean, he was able to regenerate from the injuries he sustained during the Viltrumite War and healed a broken jaw and dismembered arm within a few weeks. That ain't no joke. Now, what many don't know is that Oliver has the uncanny capacity to live entirely self-sufficiently, meaning that he doesn't need as much sleep as a normal human would. He can also survive and function in outer space without any help. In fact, he's able to survive and function in any and all environments. Plus, due to a complex balancing system located in their inner ears, Viltrumites have the ability to fly, which is a privilege Oliver also shares. And, if he wants, his enhanced lung capacity also lets him hold his breath for weeks. Lastly, because of the genes he inherited from both of his parents, Oliver's aging process fluctuates depending on the time passed. A Thraxan's lifespan is about 9 months, while a Viltrumite can live for thousands of years. So, when he was about 2 months old, he had the appearance of a 2-year-old human, but then, a couple of weeks later, he had the appearance of a 5-year-old. In fact, before he went to fight in the Viltrumite War, Oliver had already started looking like a teenager, and after being just 10 months away from Earth, Oliver had become an adult. Later, 6 months after leaving Earth again, Oliver had the appearance of an adult male who bore more similarities to an adult Mark. Eventually, 5 years later, Oliver looked like an adult Viltrumite male, but ironically, within each age cycle, his aging was slowed down by his Viltrumite DNA. I think it was Nolan who had speculated that Oliver would likely live for centuries, if not thousands of years, and still be in his prime. Unfortunately, he was gone way too soon after meeting his end at Thrag's hands. Anyways, I don't think this is news, but Viltrumites are the most powerful beings in the Invincible universe, with almost nothing matching their raw power. While Oliver's powers powers might not reach that of a full-blooded Viltrumite, his abilities to learn and develop at incredible speeds along with his Viltrumite powers easily make Oliver Grayson one of the most powerful characters in Invincible. And, well, that was Kid Omni-Man's adventures in the Invincible saga from the very beginning to the very end. What do you guys think about this character? Let us know your thoughts and opinions in the comment section down below, and if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Thanks for watching, stay safe out there, and have a marvelous day.